No risk it, no biscuit.
Coming from the Arizona desert, presented by SBNation.com. For Arizona Cardinals fans, by Arizona Cardinals fans, with outsider and insider's perspectives, this is Revenge of the Birds. Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans. This is Revenge of the Birds Radio. I'm your host, Jess Root, and we're starting off the postseason. The Cardinals had a week bye, but we now enter our All Cardinals show. Seth Cox is on the line. Seth, how are you doing tonight?
Good, Jess. How are you?
We're doing great. We're trying something different audio-wise, so I think you guys listening to the show, however many that might be, will enjoy this a little bit better. It sounds like Seth. You know, we did this audio a long time ago, recording it through Google Hangouts. We've done Skype. We did Blog Talk Radio. And then I was dialing him directly and recording. And then I heard, Seth, I heard your podcast the other night. And it's like, wait a minute, that's a lot clearer than I hear him. So we're going to, hopefully this will do the trick to make everybody audio happy and hope go for there. But how... We're going to talk playoffs. We got some things to talk about. So, how did it feel to be on a weekend with no Cardinals? Not because the Cardinals season was over, but because we were waiting to see who they were going to play.
Yeah, I mean, there was no way to know what was going to happen, who they were going to play, who they were going to take on, and it was very close to being the Minnesota Vikings again, and then that got screwed up. So now we're back to a rematch with another NFC North opponent.
So yes, the things which is kind of interesting because there was a lot of talk of things that a lot of predictions. I got half my predictions wrong. A lot of people thought that the Green Bay Packers were playing awful football, and at least I overlooked the fact that the Redskins just aren't that good. And I looked back at their schedule and saw they hadn't beaten a single team with a winning record all year. That ended with a winning record all year. I guess they did have one win over a team that was winning record at the time. I think they beat the Rams when they were 1-0, but I completely overlooked that and kind of saw all the flaws on Green Bay and sort of forgot that and still said, okay, yeah, I think Washington's going to, even though Aaron Rodgers and everything else, and then that turned out to be kind of a silly pick, as it turns out.
Well, and I think Washington was the only home team I took as well this weekend, and One thing that, I think was overlooked coming into this game, Green Bay's offensive line had played horrible. We witnessed it firsthand 3 weeks ago almost. And Washington's front seven is very good. And we saw that early in the game. Preston Smith, a favorite of yours and mine coming out this year, had a sack safety on J.C. Treader playing left tackle, and it kind of looked like it was much of the same. And then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but later in the first half, things started to click, and then everything just kind of fell into place in terms of the Packers' game plan. They're a team that is best when they are able to play from ahead and get that defensive line kind of pinning their ears back, similar to the Cardinals without the talent in the secondary, but similar in that they have Julius Peppers, who is Dwight Freeney still. The one difference is they have Clay Matthews, who is the best pass rusher either team has to offer, and then but they struggle in the secondary, and then that's where they made leaps and bounds, outside of their offensive line actually showing up. made leaps and bounds in that game where they were pretty good. They played aggressive against the ball. They got away with some stuff. Hopefully, we'll see if they get away with that this week. But they also made some timely plays. And let's just face it, Kirk Cousins is not in the same realm as Carson Palmer this year. So let's see what happens on Sunday.
And so basically, if you hadn't been paying attention to the league at all, what we got was a Seattle Seahawks team heading into Minnesota, a team they had absolutely demolished earlier in the season. Only it was a cold game. And it looked like the Seahawks were going to be eliminated. They had they were up 10-9, but the Vikings were about to kick a 27-yard field goal. And you guys, everyone who's listening to this knows the story. Blair Walsh wide left by a wide margin on a 27-yard chip shot. And really because of nothing the Seahawks did in that game, especially late in the game, they didn't do anything to win that game late. They were just blessed, deal with the devil, whatever you want to call it. They advance and will, in terms of this week, it's probably worked out the best for the Cardinals because Minnesota, we both felt, was of the three possible teams, was the most difficult matchup, most physical matchup, would be the biggest challenge for the Cardinals this weekend in the divisional round. And the other game we talked about, Green Bay pulls ahead of Washington after a bad first quarter and kind of rolls the rest away. Over the AFC, I'm not necessarily concerned about that, but the Chiefs, beat another bad team, and the Texans, I thought Texans would play better, and especially being at home, but Brian Hoyer, as someone was saying on Twitter, did the full Delhomme, in reference to Jake Delhomme against the Cardinals back after the 2008 season, in that postseason, when he just went, sort of ended his career essentially as a valid NFL player. And then we got the Steelers and the Bengals saga, debacle, whatever you want to call it, in which a couple of very poor decisions on terms of characters on the Cincinnati Bengals get personal fouls on sportsmanlike conduct, moves the Steelers up 30 yards after A.J. McCarron makes the biggest throw of his life in the NFL, was all set to get that playoff win and that big play that Andy Dalton never got, and it turned out to be the Steelers move on.
Yeah, the AFC was, we had two games that were fun well, fun may not be the right word, but we had two games that were fun in Pittsburgh, Cincy, and then, the Minnesota-Seattle game. And both those games were kind of mirror images of each other. Nasty weather. Obviously, the Pittsburgh-Cincy game had more offense. But, they both had plays at the end that just made you shake your head, kind of get upset because, if you're a Cardinals fan, you still root for the Steelers to lose any time in the playoffs. And so seeing them, be gifted 30 yards by just some boneheaded plays was, difficult to watch. And, as you said, A.J. McCarron played well. A lot, even, Vontaze Burfict played out of his mind. The problem is he doesn't know how to get back in his own mind and control himself. So that was an issue. And then obviously, like you said, the Seattle game was frustrating to watch because it seems like, Minnesota did everything the right way. I hated the conservativeness at the end of the game, but I know that's what NFL teams do. They play for the field goal, and they don't take chances throwing the ball when they're that close because they don't want to throw an interception. And that's the risk you run. I understand there was a 99% chance that it was going to work out, but whatever. It didn't work out, obviously. When you look at it, though, it just kind of reinforces my idea that it's destiny for it to be Arizona and Seattle in the NFC Championship game, and for the Cardinals to kind of put up or shut up if they're the team, not just in the NFC West but in the NFC. Obviously, they still have a game to play, but you and I, being fans, can talk about whatever we want.
That's right.
And so that just kind of fed into that idea of my own that, man, we're on a collision course for Arizona, Seattle. Yeah, Green Bay and Carolina, two very good teams, stand in the way, but that's what I feel. And in the AFC, I kind of feel the same way. I kind of feel like we're going to get Peyton and Tom one more time. Like, the Steelers advance with a MASH unit, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs are a very good team. I look at the Denver Pittsburgh game similarly to how I look at the Cardinals Packers game. I think the higher seeds are the better teams. The quarterbacks on the opposing teams are the wild card in both games. Big Ben can win any game. We've seen it before, and Aaron Rodgers can win any game. And then in the other games, I just feel like Seattle and New England are superior teams in the right places. But that being said, I wouldn't be shocked if Carolina and Kansas City won. It's just one of those things where I just feel like it's just that's the way the NFL season needed to end, with it being Seattle and Arizona and New England and Denver.
And that makes a lot of sense. Now, personally, over the AFC, I still, the Chiefs are a team that I look at, and I look, yes, they have a very talented defense. Alex Smith plays efficiently, but I look at the team and I look at their schedule. They've won 11 straight games, but they haven't played anybody of any quality in 2 months. They've got a couple of really nice wins in the beginning of that streak, but it's a team that I still just can't believe in. And as opposed to you, I think it will be shocking if the Patriots lose. I mean, big picture, Tom Brady in the playoffs at home, that's a lock in my book. And that I also, one of the things I do over at RevengeBars.com, our fantastic SB Nation blog, Seth contributes. I write most of the content on there. So if you're familiar with the site, you're familiar with the content there. One of my weekly things is I make my picks against the spread. And one of my guiding principles for making those picks is I don't bet against Tom Brady at home ever. And I'm not going to do it this week. So I would be shocked, honestly. Well, and despite the 11 straight wins by Kansas City, I still don't believe in them overall. Mainly because you look at what they do, they've been putting up points, but as long as New England's got Brady and Gronk, I think they are that team. And as effective as Alex Smith is, you look, what does he do? He doesn't throw for 200 yards. He throws, 3 yards down the field, bunch of screens and flats, and Andy Reid on top of that. You can't expect him to, especially, Andy Reid's a great coach, but his teams, even his best Philly teams, they consistently failed at late in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's Andy Reid, it's Alex Smith, it's the one comparison I'll make that's a positive, and because I like the Chiefs team. The way they play, I love their defense. Outside of Carolina and Seattle, and obviously Arizona, they're my favorite AFC. I don't know. I love Denver's defense too. There's a lot of fun defenses this year, but Kansas City kind of. Don't take this the wrong way, people. Kind of reminds me of Seattle from a couple years ago, where they're just stubbornly good on defense. They've been playing without Justin Houston for a while now, and they just do enough on offense, and they don't make any mistakes. This is Russell Wilson, 3 years ago when they got to the NFC Championship game type stuff that they're doing. So that's the one thing I kind of like about them. But you're right. I mean, it's New England and Tom at home. It's really hard to see them losing. But you and I feel the same way about the Cardinals game. But the difference in that is the Chiefs don't have Aaron Rodgers, right?
No, they don't.
That's as much as a great defense has been key to a lot of wins recently. We've seen quarterbacks overcome all of that. New England obviously last year. So we'll have to see what happens. I mean, a quarterback being great is the one kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's the one thing that you can't discount in the playoffs. We saw it obviously firsthand with Kurt Warner in 2009 or 2008, whatever year that was.
Kind of both years, honestly, because it was the 2009 postseason, then that epic game against Green Bay, which it's long enough away. It's long enough ago that you want to say, oh, it's that playoff rematch. And yes, it's Aaron Rodgers, and that's about it. Aaron Rodgers remembers that game, but in terms of the Cardinals, what do they have? Calais Campbell and Larry Fitzgerald, and
Yeah, there's one more player, but I can't think of it right now. Lyle Sedline, there it is.
Ah, yes, Lyle Sedline. But listeners, you didn't come to the show, you didn't download the show, turn the show on to listen necessarily to what we thought about the games over the weekend, because what we talk about is the Cardinals, and they've got a game this weekend against the Green Bay Packers. But some little news that happened on Tuesday. We were recording on a Tuesday evening. Kind of a surprise, at least how it came about. There was a report on Monday, Field Yates ESPN, that had the Cardinals working out a couple of veteran defensive players. Jason Babin, defensive end outside linebacker, and Matt Shaughnessy, a guy we know quite well, as he spent 2 seasons with the Cardinals, was cut in the preseason this year. Key to that Cardinals top defense in 2013 and against the run, and then last year for the first half of the season where he was great. Had a knee injury late in the season, and then this offseason just got buried on the depth chart as he was moved from outside linebacker to the defensive end again. In the end, it caused me to speculate, well, there's got to be an injury somewhere. I wondered, well, maybe Marcus Golden, well, maybe it's because of Redding. It turns out it's Alex Okafor. We don't know the details of it. There is a toe injury of something not related to practice or football. Someone told me, I didn't hear the interview, that Bruce Arians said on TV sometime today that it was just a stupid accident. But anytime that non-football injury comes into play, especially this time of the season, it always brings back some bad memories, some weird things that happened. Jonathan Dwyer a year ago, Calvin Pace when he fell through a window, slicing up his arm. Thomas Jones breaking his hand on a telephone. I still don't know how that happens unless you're punching a telephone for some reason. It was clearly something that the team was disappointed about based on, the way Bruce talked on Tuesday when he spoke to the media. And so he's done. Corey Redding was put on IR, but simply because they needed the roster space. And so they signed Jason Babin, long-time veteran, I think 12 years in the league, 64.5 sacks, but really hasn't been worth a flip for a couple of years. The same could be said about Dwight Freeney bringing him in, and they've gotten some big production. But there are, in terms of pass rushing, there was some more stats there to back up the Freeney signing. So we've got Jason Babin now on the outside, which means we're going to get a full dose of Kareem Martin and Marcus Golden will be back, so that'll be good. So it's going to be Kareem Martin and Marcus Golden as the starters. Dwight Freeney is a rotational guy, 20-25 snaps. And then the Arians said that there'd be a role for Babin, whatever that is, whether it's on special teams, whether it's a couple of pass rushes. And then they move Alane Fua kind of over to the outside linebackers and promote Gabe Martin, preseason stud, inside linebacker, up for the practice squad to the active roster. Your initial reaction, Seth, I mean, we texted about it before. It was like, you didn't understand the roster move. Do you have any reactions to signing of Babin?
No, because like you said, he hasn't been good in so long. And yes, I know he played for the Jaguars. And coming to Arizona means you found the fountain of youth, and you're going to be an All-Pro again. But I mean, realistically, like I'm just going over his stats right now.
I think it was 7.5.
sacks,
Was it in 7.5 in 2012 or 2013?
Yeah, but he had 2 sacks last year for the Jets.
Oof.
When he was playing in more of a 3-4 style. So dude hasn't even really played in the 3-4 style outside of part-time as a New York Jet last year where he was useless. He's a veteran, and he knows his role, and he won't overplay himself. So I think, in all of those terms, you are fine with that. But in the end, I mean, I don't know. Can he make a difference? I don't know. I mean, this isn't Dwight Freeney, trying to wait for a contender to offer him something. This is a guy that is one of like 5 guys available that has any veteran experience. The names they brought in, as you said, Matt Shaughnessy and Jason Babin, it just shows you that they all they needed was somebody that knows how to play the game. They weren't going to bring in somebody that's an athletic freak that can bend the edge they just need somebody that they can trust to fill their assignments if they have to play in a pinch. And I think that's what Babin is right now. And that's not a bad thing. If he's going to come in as a backup, there's no way he's going to play a ton of snaps, right?
No, I don't. And if he does, what does that say about Kareem Martin?
Yeah, exactly. Barring, Marcus Golden's leg being sawed off, I just don't see it. So I think, we're going to get Golden, Freeney, and Martin in kind of a rotation, and then maybe you'll see some
5-6 snaps on.
Yeah, maybe some passing downs, or maybe some goal line stuff, something where they're not comfortable with Martin, something like that. But I don't see a ton of reps.
When I saw the news on Monday, I was not excited at all about the possibility of Babin, knowing that he hasn't done anything in a while. Like, it's been nothing. But Shaughnessy intrigued me because of what we saw from him as a player before this season. And if you move him back to outside linebacker, and going back and giving him a little bit of context to this, is I was shocked personally that he didn't get signed anywhere. As good as he was for Arizona, to not even get a sniff during the regular season after he was cut, it just seems interesting to me. And it tells me that knee wasn't right. While he was cleared, he clearly was not the same player health-wise, knee-wise, as he was last year. He was buried on the depth chart. And the writing was on the wall, considering he was due to make, $2 million. But unless it was a case of greed, and maybe he would have been brought on had maybe he wanted more security than the Cardinals were going to offer. I don't know. But it tells me more than anything else that it's really kind of a sad story about how things happen in the NFL. You have an injury, and then no one will touch you again, no matter what you did previously.
Exactly, and it's unfortunate, but it's the reality of the NFL. Like it's kind of a joke, but life is at you fast. Like one day you're starting for one of the top defenses in the NFL, and the next day you can't get a job, playing scout team for bottom feeders. It's just the way the NFL works.
And something this is non-Cardinals, and I'm kind of excited, kind of related to the topic, is I'm kind of excited about, since there are a couple of perks that I have being on the media side of things. In addition to be a Cardinals fan myself, I have a few perks on the media side. I'm on some media lists, and one of them now is, I get emails about some sports books that are about to be published, and so I get, if I want to review them, I can get a copy. One of them I just got today, delivered to my door, is was just released, I think, earlier this month, called NFL Confidential. And it's about an actual NFL player, anonymous. He hates the NFL, and he says there's a handful of players who hate the NFL because he's gonna tell all of the good, bad, and the ugly when it comes to the NFL. I'm really kind of excited to see that, especially in light of a thing how the league goes. It will just chew you up and spit you out, and as soon as you are hurt, especially if you are not a top tier player, the league just completely ignores you. And that's kind of the Shaughnessy thing. That's completely aside. I'm excited about that. I want to get reading on it.
Was that written by Kerry Rhodes?
Well, that's kind of it sounds like a guy who's actually on a roster right now.
Okay.
It's complete anonymous. He changed the players' names. He says there's no way to catch it, but I believe it is a white player. And just flipping through the book, it might be an interior offensive lineman on some team somewhere.
Oh, it's Darren College then. Okay.
Oh, that would be hilarious. Although I get the impression that he really liked football.
Oh yeah, he's a good guy. He's a great guy. Actually, he's hilarious. But
so let's turn our attention. I kind of got us off track, but let's turn our attention back to the Cardinals. Let's look at the game that we have this weekend: Cardinals-Packers. We know what happened the last time around. It went sideways quickly. The Cardinals, for 2 drives, actually, it looked like a competitive game. I wasn't too terribly worried, but it looked like it was going to be a good competitive game for a couple of drives. As Carson Palmer got sacked on one. The Green Bay defense played pretty well, but then, they already were out their left tackle. They lost another couple of linemen. They lost B.J. Raji. They were already down Sam Shields, and then things just snowballed. Is there anything we can take away from that game at all entering this week?
I would say yes if they didn't have so many injuries. So I'm kind of trying to look over here. So Bakhtiari is supposed to be back this week. That's what I heard.
Yes.
So the only major injury they're going to have on their offensive side of the ball is Devontae Adams, who, let's be honest, he might be more of a liability than an actual, asset at this point.
Except for the fact that
a lot of passes.
Except for the fact that that receiving core is
They're
very
banged up.
Unimpressive this year.
Yeah.
Because James Jones was nothing in the league a year ago. He was dead and done, and he's turned into a deep threat. I mean, he's been pretty dang good. Randall Cobb, solid year, but they bottled him up. So there's really not much, especially with a really strong secondary that Cardinals have. There isn't much in terms of receiver talent and speed that's really going to worry the secondary or really going to shake them or cause matchup problems out there.
No, yeah, the receiving core isn't the issue. I think the issue is going to be Aaron Rodgers. So, but you look at it, from the injury standpoint, I don't think there's a ton you can take from that game on either side of the ball because, like you said, that they were banged up on the in the secondary. The secondary is not great to begin with, but then you take out Sam Shields and somebody else got hurt in the game, and I can't remember who. But yeah, it's just not very good. And so I think we'll see a different game. I also think that was an emotional game for the Cardinals because it was the first game without Tyrann, and it was kind of the idea of we got to prove that we're still the best defense out here. And so I think like you said, a lot of it snowballed into that blowout. I just think that you can look at that and go, oh, definitely, that's what we're going to see this game.
I definitely, really, there's not a lot I can take away from that game other than, it should be more, except for what we saw for 2 or 3 drives, about 2 or 3 possessions overall, where you see, to me, this is a game in which it should be competitive, but the Cardinals ultimately are more talented and playing at home and well-rested. So it will be a case, if there's a blueprint to follow, it's this. the Cardinals should, with competitive balance on both sides of the ball, pull ahead to an early lead, build it up a little bit. Aaron Rodgers come back some, and then the Cardinals make plays in the fourth quarter. 30-point win? No. With the 7.5 point line that the Cardinals have, I completely expect I still think that the Cardinals cover that personally to, somewhere between an 8, kind of a 9 or a 10 to 15 point victory without it necessarily being a complete blowout, being competitive, but the Cardinals comfortably ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a 10-point win for the Cardinals. I think it's close, and I think maybe Green Bay has a chance to tie it, in the fourth quarter, and Arizona gets stopped and a field goal to extend the lead or something like that. But yeah, that's why I'm kind of there. A 10-point win. The biggest matchups are going to be simply, where do they put Patrick?
Because we saw him quite a bit on Devontae Adams, actually.
Yeah, so are they going to put him on James Jones now, or are they going to just let him kind of cover Randall Cobb? Because let's be honest. I mean, as great as Patrick is and has been this year, he hasn't done a whole lot of work from the slot. So, and that's where Cobb, kind of lines up. They had him in the backfield quite a bit actually last game too, trying to get those matchups on linebackers. So you're going to see Dayon getting some work on him too. I think Cobb's really kind of the X factor on the Packers offense. If he can kind of go off, so to speak, then I think, it'll be a much more hotly contested game. Whereas if he's just kind of there throughout the game, making catches every once in a while, I think it's going to be, like we said, like a 30-20 type game where, maybe it's a game in the late or, the middle to early stages of the fourth quarter. And then, but it never seems, like it's going to be out of the Cardinals' control.
What do you take away from this talk of the swagger coming back? BA talked about Aaron Rodgers during that game smiling for the first time in weeks. Aaron Rodgers after the game back to his kind of cocky self. He can be kind of a smug guy when it comes to making comments. And Randall Cobb is like, "You like that? You like that?" Making fun of Kirk Cousins. Do you see anything into that? Because I almost think that's, to me, it's a bit premature when all they did was beat a not very good Washington team who barely won a division that was terrible. It was absolutely atrocious. Getting a win was nice to pull away and to put them up the number of points that they did was nice, I'm sure. But to come away with that game with that smug swagger seemed to me a little premature or maybe even fabricated in some way to try to build up this game even more. I don't know. Is there anything that you see that sees, their swag is back, that swagger, that confidence is back, so we should expect a better Packers? I just think that they're going to be better because they've got better players on the field this time around.
Well, there's that. And, like I said earlier, you cannot ever just discount, and I'm not saying you are, but I do think a lot of Cardinals fans are. You can't discount a great quarterback. And so, Aaron Rodgers having a good game. He didn't have a great game. He had a good game. And what happened there, I think it's worrisome because you don't want him getting into a groove. You don't want him feeling like he can, because he already thinks that he can, beat any team on any given day, but you don't want him to go out there and actually start to do it. And then, because the difference is, and nobody's going to admit this, and nobody's ever going to say this, but I don't think the Packers, or I think the Packers know that the Cardinals are a better team, and so they all kind of look at Aaron Rodgers like, okay, can you do this? Like, you got this for us? And if he starts to, that's when the rest of the team buys in. So that's the one danger, swagger, whatever you want to call it. That's the one danger of this team kind of getting on a hot streak last week and starting to have fun again, because you could tell for about 6 or 7 weeks they had kind of lost all of that in the idea of, this is a fun game and we're a fun team to watch, and they've been kind of boring and kind of ineffective in a lot of ways. So, that's like I said, that's the one danger of them kind of getting their groove back, so to speak.
Although on another, if you turn the flip side, what was everyone talking about? Seattle getting their mojo back on a roll, and then their blowout victory over the Cardinals was just a distant memory, and they really not much could be said about how they played against Minnesota, who, part of it's the weather, but still, momentum. That when you have confidence in a team, all it takes is a couple of what we notice about football players. As much confidence you can have going into a game, all it takes is a couple of plays going the other way to kind of turn that momentum down on its head and kind of lose it. And it's only the great teams and the very focused teams who can overcome that late in games. Seattle's a team that we've seen do that. They never sort of feel out of it, and they always seem to, even when they're down 2 touchdowns, they come back. That's why they haven't lost by more than 7 or 8 or 10 points in 8 years or whatever absurd amount of games that is, because they are very tough and very focused. Cardinals are the same way. That we know that if they get behind, if they get some adversity, they can overcome it because they've done it several times this season.
Yeah, and like you said, that's not what you see from this Packers team, but I don't know. I think in the playoffs it's just a different brand of stuff, and like you said, it may not be as simple as we carrying that momentum over from the week, but maybe it is. Maybe that's all they needed was to have a good performance to kind of re-jumpstart and re-energize the team. But yeah, honestly, I don't know. It's hard to envision this Cardinals team losing to this Packers team.
And that would go down this Cardinals team with what they did this season, if they became a one-and-done team losing to these Packers, that's a big deal because that puts them in the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Diego Chargers and even those Indianapolis Colts teams of great big choke jobs in the playoffs. The Cardinals really only, from a national perspective, only need to win one game to legitimize their season because they're going to play another team next week, which we'll talk about in just a second, that will either one will be the number 1 seed, the 15-1 Panthers, or the two-time defending NFC champs and 2 years ago was the Super Bowl champs and won within a play, a silly play call and super play by Malcolm Butler of winning another Super Bowl. So Cardinals, just really the pressure on them. They just need to win this game to legitimize their national reputation, to have it not be a wasted season. We know they have bigger expectations, and we think that they have to make the Super Bowl to legitimize their season, at least to say, okay, this season was a success. But, if the Cardinals lose this game, that, it will be another one of those absolutely wasted seasons because of the way they played in the regular season.
Yeah, you don't want to be the team that loses to Green Bay, right? 13-3 and a one and done. Oh, especially if the Seahawks advance, you'll never hear the end of that ever. But it also will bring up issues that have not plagued the Cardinals to this point because they've kind of gotten by without it, and that's the Carson Palmer factor of is he a guy that can win in the playoffs? And so all of a sudden you open a new can of worms, and we just don't need to have that conversation yet. Let's not have the conversation of can he win in the playoffs. I'd rather have the conversation is he the guy that can win it all for the team if they lose in the Super Bowl, as opposed to, oh my gosh, they lost to the Packers. Where do we go from here? So,
but I just wanted to make sure we had a healthy dose of reality, just in case. Just, as fans, we can say, "Oh, there's no way they're losing this game," and well, they better not lose this game. And I think it would be shocking if they lost this game for a number of reasons. One, the Cardinals are talent-wise a superior team, I think, in every way and form. You could say that Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback, but Carson Palmer certainly had the better season. Really, across the board, the Cardinals are a better team, and Green Bay's good defensively, but the Cardinals have been great defensively. They have Aaron Rodgers, but the Cardinals have been great offensively. Are there any other particular matches? Now, we look at a couple other things that played into the game when they met in Week 15. In Week 16, that is. And the matchup that I want to watch again is see if Justin Bethel is playing James Jones. How does that matchup work this time? Because, in terms of game grades, he was graded kind of low by a lot of people, Pro Football Focus one of them, because he was targeted a lot. He gave up a lot of catches. He gave up a lot of first downs. He got penalized. But he made some plays, and most of his catches were, in the big picture, kind of inconsequential. But that matchup, again, is one to watch because guess what? Aaron Rodgers is a smart quarterback. He's also not one to test other corners. We've seen him against Seattle completely ignore Richard Sherman. He really kind of ignored Patrick Peterson when they met. So that's going to play in that matchup I want to see again. And I want to see if the Cardinals can get any pass rush against a healthy Green Bay offensive line, because from what we saw most of the season, it's questionable.
Right, and I think that's kind of where you have to look at this game from the matchup standpoints. Is there's just like outside of quarterback, and that's saying if Aaron Rodgers plays as Aaron Rodgers, Clay Matthews is the only other player on the Packers that you go, okay, that guy starts over everybody on the Cardinals, right? Like, if you just line up all the guys, starters from 1 to 22 on both sides, what other players are you taking from the Packers? Like I said, Aaron Rodgers and Clay Matthews. But we've seen in the playoffs where a guy that, obviously a quarterback we talked about earlier, but a pass rusher and, a pass rush in general can be enough to be a better team. I don't see that in this game. You mentioned James Jones. I don't know. I mean, really? I don't know. With Devontae Adams out, they basically have Jared Abbrederis, who hasn't done anything all year. Jeff Janis hasn't done anything ever. Randall Cobb's been a shell of himself, and James Jones has been, a godsend, but he's a fourth wide receiver, couldn't get on the field or couldn't hang with the New York Jets and Oakland Raiders jettisoned him. So it's not like we're talking about, the Cincinnati Bengals receiving core or anything like that.
No,
the Cardinals are going up against.
But a wily vet like that against an inexperienced corner in Bethel is worth seeing again, since Jones and Rodgers kind of got the best of Bethel in some, and Bethel got the best of them on another play. It's something I'm interested in seeing again, to see how, if Bethel improves this time around.
Yeah, and I guess that the good thing, or the thing you'd want to see on that, is that if Bethel improves this time around, knowing that perhaps he'd have to go up against, Tyler Lockett again or Doug Baldwin again the next week, where he didn't play well at all against the Seahawks. And granted, nobody really played well, but he especially didn't play well. I think, that'll be interesting. But like I said, I don't know. I'm not concerned enough where probably not concerned as I should be about that, as you're talking about it. It does make sense, but I don't know.
So let's you kind of alluded to a kind of a prediction. Do you have any particular score prediction you'd like to throw on this game? I don't know if I can say the Cardinals are going to kind of roll all the way up to 30 points. I see this being a sort of a 27 to 17, maybe 27-19 type game for Arizona. I think they cover their 7.5. But I don't think it'll be more than a 2-touchdown win.
Yeah, I think we're sitting somewhere like if I had to like call a score, I'd say 31-21. I'd feel really comfortable with that. Cardinals up 28-21 late and kick a late field goal and then kind of hang on. So that's where I would be 31-21. I think a closer game wouldn't shock me, but I'd be. I don't know if I could have a podcast next week if the Cardinals lose.
Oh, that'd be a miserable thing. Let's pack up the show. We're done, guys. Type of situation. A lament on the Cardinals season, eulogy of that type of season. But now let's look ahead to let's assume, because we can do that as fans and as analysts. Let's jump ahead to the future. We don't have to play the game, but we're just going to assume the Cardinals win this game because that's what we do. We expect the Cardinals to win. We now, next week, will be on a crash course of one of two teams. And actually, I like both matchups a lot in terms of storyline. You either have the Cardinals traveling to play the Carolina Panthers in the stadium where they put a record performance of the worst sort, where they had the lowest offensive output ever in a playoff game a season ago with Ryan Lindley and company. And so that's a game that team's going to remember. They didn't play Carolina this year, and as good as Carolina has been all year, I think that'll be a fun game and will have meaning other than to go to the Super Bowl. There's some revenge to be had there. Or they have the Seahawks come to Arizona again, and the Cardinals get their chance to say, no, it's our stadium, it's our division, and it's our conference. Sorry, Seattle, we're done with the 12s and the rest of you. I never will root ever for the Seahawks to win because I can't, but I sort of want to play Seattle because I think there would be something cathartic and more rewarding for the Cardinals to go through Seattle to get to the Super Bowl. Personally.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Except I don't want to play Seattle because I don't like the idea of losing to Seattle.
That too.
Every other team, like I said before, I can get even a Packers loss. I can get over it. Whatever. A Seattle loss, that's just going to haunt me for so long because they're, I don't know if they're a better team, but they've played better this year. They've had a better year, but you don't want them to, at the end of the day, lose, in the biggest game of the year to the team that they're trying to get over the hump against, so to speak. So I'm rooting for Carolina because I'd rather just go to Carolina and play Carolina, and because I think the Cardinals are a much better team than Carolina. But either way, like you said, I'm kind of in your boat. Like, I'm good with either, and I'd really like to beat Seattle to kind of put to bed the whole Seattle is the king of the NFC West, even though they are, because they have a younger quarterback. So their future is their longevity of being, the playoff team is probably slightly better than Arizona's right now in terms of 4 years from now. But in the immediate future, I want the Cardinals to reign as king, for the Palmer era for as long as that lasts.
And for me, I like Cam Newton a little bit. I'm a Cam Newton fan personally. So losing to Cam Newton, if that were to be the case, Carolina's a team I think, I don't know yet if I would root for in the Super Bowl. As, I am a Peyton Manning fan, but I'm sort of not a Broncos fan, so I don't know there. And I've become a Tom Brady fan. I used to hate him, but it would also be a great exclamation point on his season as he kind of went full FU all year to the league. But if losing to Seattle, that's the absolute worst thing. Losing to the Packers, not the worst thing in the world, annoying and terrible for the year that the Cardinals have, but losing to Seattle would be the absolute worst. But beating Seattle would be the absolute best.
Yeah. I think we're going to end up with the Seattle-Arizona game, though, like I said to start the show. I think
it's destined to happen.
Yeah, I think it's destined to happen. I think after that Minnesota miss on the chip shot field goal, I feel like that destiny just, kind of reared its head even stronger. So I think that's where we're headed, and I look forward to the Packers game at 6:15 on Saturday night, and then then having Sunday off to enjoy what should be some fun games. But I wish they were the early game, to be completely honest. I wish they were the 2:30 game, but it is what it is. I don't want to have to be up till 10 o'clock being stressed out.
Ooh.
Even though it is Saturday night, I just don't want to be stressed out till 10 o'clock at night. At least I don't have to drive home through the traffic like you do. So.
Oh, I don't actually, because on those late games, I don't get home till like 1. It's that bad. So the game is 6:15 start. It'll end about 9:30. Get back into the press room about 10:30, and then write for a couple hours. So yeah, traffic's gone by the time I leave, and I think the whole world is. I think all existence has ended by the time I'll get out of that stadium. But so we come to a close of another Revenge of the Birds radio episode. So there it is. Destiny is calling. Seattle, Arizona, which would give us the highest of highs, at least pre-Super Bowl, because losing to the Seahawks would be the absolute worst, but beating the Seahawks and going to the Super Bowl would be the absolute best. And if I don't think about it too much, beating the Seahawks to get to the Super Bowl might almost be more rewarding personally than winning the Super Bowl. I'm not going to go that far, I won't go, but it would feel that good.
Oh, it would. It would be fantastic, and it would be, it would definitely be the cherry on top of the year. But I wouldn't go that far that it's better than the Super Bowl, because I've tasted the agony of defeat too many times in Arizona sports, and I do not want to taste it again with the Cardinals losing another Super Bowl.
And for that reason, Steelers stay home. So Denver, take care of your business, because if there's another team that I don't want to face for destiny, it's the Steelers, because they are another team where the football gods or the football devils seem to just have things happen that are fortunate for them in terms of playoff football.
Yeah, they get away with a lot. So that's the reality of the situation.
So the next time you hear from us, as far as I don't have anything planned as a preview show for the Green Bay game with someone from Acme Packing Company, but we will be back, or if in the stunning case where the Cardinals lose, maybe I'll be all alone because Seth might have quit his podcasting career by then.
I'll try to be back. I can't promise that it will be kid friendly, though. I cannot promise anybody that.
Seth will be
just might kick me off.
It will be back to Hater Seth. Seth has been gone for a long time. There's been a lot of good to talk about, but hopefully we can continue on this Homer and happy time. But until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. This is Revenge of the Birds Radio signing off. Thanks for listening.
Have a great night, everybody.
You've been listening to Revenge of the Birds. Keep the conversation going by visiting revengeofthebirds.com. Follow us on Twitter at Revenge of Birds. You can also find us on iTunes at facebook.com/Revenge of the Birds.